I wouldn't consider myself to be closed-minded, because that inquisitive nature of me is like, oh, you have a different perspective on this? Let's talk about it. I've actually thought about this a whole lot.
You don't have a TV in your house, and you said it's because you want to create a space where you and your spouse, your kids can be creative and even make art. And it's not the kind of like anti-TV culture or like no, I don't like TV or whatever. It's just like, actually I want this, you know. How's that been working for you so far?
There's the side of this, like before having kids, of my wife and I kind of wanting to create a life that we really enjoy. And I think a lot of our favorite experiences as we grew up and it was spending time with people in spaces that felt like pleasant to be in. And it wasn't usually like gathered around a television. It was usually like gathered around a fireplace or like a beautiful window with like a view, and like having conversation and sharing hot drinks and maybe like listening to music or playing music together. So there's this sort of like just kind of being at rest with people, and we wanted to create a home that felt that way. And so having a TV in the living room just felt like a major distraction from that. And so it was like, what can we center the room around that's not that? And so we have a fireplace in our living room now, which is really a nice way to like anchor the room around something that's not a TV. But we like watching TV too. So like, exactly. So one thing that we've done that I think has worked out really well is we, instead of having a TV and instead of just like watching things on laptops or whatever, we have a projector. And so I have the projector set up on one side of the room, and then I have a like pull down screen I can pull down. And so when we do want to watch something, we have the ability to watch it, and we get to watch it on like an 8-foot screen, which is kind of awesome.
That is very intentional.
It is, and there's a lot of friction there to actually watch. Like you can't just like walk up and turn it on, right? Like you have to like turn on the projector, wait for it to warm up, pull down the screen, like pull down all the blinds because the ambient light would like wash out the screen if it's during the day, and then like, so there's like, but I think that friction is actually good. It's like you're not going to just casually wander into watching television. It's a kind of ritual,
so you might get some popcorn and like sit down, get cozy, get your blanket. Like it's not just like bunk, it's like all these things. And I think that's beautiful that like.
And the kids feel that too. That's the thing, as they transition into having kids, they're like, oh, it's time to, they call it screen time. It's screen time. Like, yeah, this is awesome. So it's because it's not an automatic or expected thing, or something that's like even very frequent, it has like a degree of specialness.
It's novel in the way that going to the movies is novel. But it's at your house and you create the space and like so I think that's really cool. And fun. Has a lot to do also with some other things we were talking about, which I have to maybe ease into that about like you're saying not you were talking about not defining yourself by what you don't want instead of what you do want. So I think you have so many it's just so many interesting experiences around your spirituality and your experience with religion and church and like how it interacts with your life and your community and your friends and like I don't know, like what could be the first...
I mean, I could give a quick sketch, like a background sketch.
I think that would be helpful to contextualize, because I think of all the people I've spoken to, like it is probably more a center of your life. So maybe just give some idea of like what your life is.
Well, it's kind of interesting. Like we're sitting outside right next to a Methodist church. So there's like Methodist church right over there. This is like their grounds. It's like a few minutes like walk from my house, and I actually grew up going to a Methodist church. So I grew up in a very small town. So I live in a small town in North Carolina. I grew up in a small town in Texas, and the church environment there that I was a part of was just kind of assumed that you would go to church. This is like the early to late 80s, and it's almost like a social club of like the Methodist church was like not that different from the Lions Club or the Rotary Club.
That was also a small town?
Very small, about 9,000 people. Yeah.
Do you think it is also a thing about smaller, I mean, we are in the United States and maybe it's particular to a lot of towns here, but that is a kind of center where people hang out.
I mean, there's certainly in smaller towns you tend to find more like what you might call traditional values or traditional value systems of like church and that kind of stuff. And that's no different here in Fuquay or Wharton, Texas, where I grew up. And so, I think there's also, like you said, that creates a space where I can see my neighbors and talk to them and that kind of stuff. And there is, with such a small town, people do know each other pretty well. And that the church can end up being that context. It's probably changed a little bit, but when I was growing up, that was certainly the way it was. But I think for me, like the spirituality aspect of it grew from like just I wouldn't say that the Methodist church that I grew up was overly spiritual. I'd say it was mostly social.
Okay.
And I think I've always been more maybe philosophically inclined, or like what is true about the world. And so, I'm in this space where, my parents, or at least my mom was taking me to church. My dad didn't attend church. And they're making all these claims about reality, about who God is and who humans are and that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, are these claims true or not? Like, that seems like an important thing to figure out. And it didn't seem like the other folks were interested in inquiring in that direction. And so I did what I've learned to do over the years. It's just like, okay, there's a book right in front of me. It says Bible on it. I guess I should just read that. And that supposedly has the answers in it. So I ended up, as a 10 or 12-year-old, like kind of reading the Bible for myself and trying to figure it out and understand it. It's not an easy book to interpret as a 10 or 12-year-old without any help.
And you had like an adult version, basically, because they have like kids
I had
versions.
an adult version.
Wow.
Yeah, I was just like, whatever. That's interesting. I don't even know what translation that would have been. Probably NKJV or NIV or something like that. But it would have been, not dumbed down or not simplified. And then I also remember distinctly a conversation I had with my dad when I was probably 15 or 16, and I was trying to work through this stuff. And I was like, Dad, it seems like there's like all these different religions, and you don't go to church, and we go on Sunday mornings. So it seems like Mom believes this stuff that we're learning in the Methodist church, but like, what do you believe about all these different religions and that kind of stuff? And he's like, well, kind of think it's all paths up the same mountain that all lead to the same place. And I was like, that sounds really beautiful, but like I've now read enough religious texts to know that I don't think that's true. Like, and it's like kind of like poked at him a little bit more about that, not in like a combative way at all, but like, say more about that. How do you reconcile these different things?
When you say you've read religious texts at around 15, 18, you're talking about...
I had read, obviously I'd read the Bible, like I talked about that. I had read some of like the early Buddhist texts, and had read Islam, the Quran and something like that. And I'm like, these don't seem to be making the same claims about reality. And so and at that time I hadn't run into like postmodernism and like that kind of stuff of like, well, there is no truth, there's only perspective. Like I hadn't gotten that far in my philosophical journey, right? So I was like, both of these things can't be true at the same time, right? I had this simple like 15-year-old understanding.
Was it a goal, do you think, of these things to describe reality, or?
I thought so at the time.
Okay, but we were getting to that.
Yeah.
Okay,
but this is my 15-year-old, like 15, 16-year-old, like working through it.
What did your father? What was his? Did he have a faith, or he was just not religious, or?
Just he basically was like, I guess you would call it agnostic.
Okay.
Like he's like, God exists, but
not sure in which way.
Okay. Like everybody's probably got like a different perspective on God. Kind of the whole like, we're all looking at different sides of the same diamond.
Okay.
And so we see these, the facets look slightly different, but it's the same diamond. But I was not convinced by that. And he wasn't prepared to try and convince me of that. And that's fine. But I realized at that point kind of had to set out on my own to like, that kind of, that in some ways that was like the beginning of the hero's journey of like, your father is not going to take you the next step. And there was a lot of things that were happening around that time in my relationship with my dad. He was clinically depressed, and I didn't know this, and he didn't know this until later. And so he would come home from work and like take a nap for like an hour and a half on the couch. And so one of my like memories of my dad is him napping in the middle of the day, like almost every single day. And so he just wasn't really involved in that later high school part of my life, and in ways that I'm sure he wanted to be.
Yeah.
So I think I kind of started to leave home long before I left home. So I kind of managed my own college application process, figured out where I wanted to go, applied, got in, and my parents were supportive, but it was definitely my initiative.
Wow.
And so, getting to college, there were Christian groups on campus, and so I was like, well, maybe I'll go hang out with them. And it felt more like the Methodist Church. Like, these were social groups that had a set of shared beliefs. They haven't deeply interrogated those beliefs. They're not really interested in deeply. They feel uncomfortable when you ask them those questions.
So this is actually something I'm also curious about in your experience. Like, I kind of felt like I have my own experience going to church in the past when I was younger, and now, like, reflecting on community as like a big topic and how to cultivate community generally and like bring people together, I always kind of assumed that church and community are like the same thing, or like it happens automatically. Like, of course not, like, maybe not every church is a community, but like they just felt kind of inevitable,
interchangeable,
to go together, and perhaps interchangeable. And you were talking about experiences of yourself with this group of like 5 friends after like, you left one church and trying to and like you have this distinction between community and church. Or like in your experience, like what is that for you, the difference between the two?
That's a good question. I think for me it's about being known. Like, in a community, I'm not just like there's a local coffee shop that's 10 minutes here. You visited yesterday, Cultivate, and like, I know the owners of that coffee shop, and frequently while I'm walking to that coffee shop or at the coffee shop, I run into people that I know, because I've lived in this small town for 10 years, and that's like a major point where people hang out. And so, is Cultivate a community? Well, no. Not really, but it's full of a bunch of people that, I mean, it's like a community space.
It's a community space,
but it's not. The people who are there are not a community.
Right.
They might be part of a community that is separate from that. Right. And I think that it really comes down to like the way in which, the depth at which people know each other and care for each other. And so, like, people that are in my community, like, if they're struggling or frustrated or sick or whatever, like, I'm going to know that, and I'm going to do something about it. Like, I'm
if they're having a hard time, you're not so separated from that. Or you are, like, you're aware, you can hold space for that, and you can even try to help them with it.
Right. The New Testament analogy, one of the New Testament analogies for this is the body.
The body?
The body, sorry. The body, yeah. Of like, the hand and the eye have different functions, but they're part of the same body. And in order for the body to function healthily, the hand has to be healthy, the eye has to be healthy, and that kind of stuff. And you actually, the parts of the body care for the body because it's actually in their best interests. Like, you're all knitted together in this thing. And so mutual care is, and so, do I know? I think that there are churches that I've been a part of where, specifically the church I went to later in college, was a very large church, and it was, the pastor of the church was like a national best-selling author or whatever, very good speaker, that kind of stuff. But people didn't know each other deeply there. It was like almost like an event that you attended on Sunday morning.
Right. Yeah.
That was not a community.
Because people didn't. How did you say it? Like, they are not seen, or they didn't.
They're not known.
They're not known.
There's not a knownness.
Like,
there.
you see them, and you maybe know their name, and you may have a small conversation with them, kind of small check-in, but you don't like know them, and you don't know how they spend their time during the week, and like what.
And if they drifted away and like never came back, it very likely no one ever would reach out or even notice, or or maybe notice and like say something. Oh, I haven't seen Tim in a while. Well,
And this is also interesting because that can happen perhaps easily in a city where a lot of people come in and out. But you're talking even in a small town context, like where they're not known.
Yep, it can happen. And exactly, I think increasingly I've realized how rare it is to actually be known by people, and to that it requires like vulnerability to open yourself up, and intentionality. Like you don't get it by just by having small talk with people about sports games or whatever. Not there's anything wrong with sports or movies or TV shows, but like if you're just sharing surface level stuff and not sharing like what's really going on in your life, it just requires intentionality to actually open up.
So what does that look like?
I think it involves, like, one of my favorite questions for people is just like, how are you? And then pausing. And that sounds like really simple, but we have like the default answer when people ask how you're doing.
Thanks. Like,
yeah, I was like, I'm fine. Yeah, exactly. But not accepting the default, and like actually pausing and giving people the space. And like sometimes I'll just put the emphasis on like, how are you? Or I might ask a follow-up question. How was your week? Or, just like, so I think it starts by those like simple questions, but then I actually have like, when I'm getting to know people, I have like a list of questions that I like to use with them. Like one is, where were you born and where'd you grow up?
Okay.
I mean, if you don't know somebody, like where they were born and where they grew up, you don't know them very well, and it tends to trigger like really interesting questions. Like I know a little bit about where you were born and where you grew up, and I mean that one set of questions together, that pulls on so many threads, right?
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, there's another one that I like to, after I've talked about that for a bit and gotten to know people a little bit in that way, is like, tell me what your parents did for a living.
Okay.
And that one's like nicely, I think it's nicely positioned because you're not directly asking about their relationship with their parents, but you're asking about their parents such that they can reveal as much as they would like to about their relationships with their parents, or they can answer in like a really like, oh, my dad was a lawyer, my mom was a stay-at-home mom.
So I like this because, I mean,
it lets them opt in.
It lets them opt in. It's also, I think it suits you very well because you are kind of this conversational person, and you have a kind of charisma, and you do leave space, and you can listen, and like, so I think that works really well, and also especially like on this one-to-one level.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in your perhaps experiments and your experiences with like either specifically that small group or just other things where you feel like, what are other mechanisms that you need to turn like a community space into something that's actually more of a community? You know, like, or what are the things that need to happen so that people can be known or feel known, and what are some like affordances for those things? Yeah,
I mean, I think one of the ones, having a shared purpose is really helpful. Like, why are we together? And it can be, that community can form around all kinds of really I mean, you can have a community around a Dungeons and Dragons game that, that assembles once a week or whatever. But I think having that a shared purpose or shared like goal or whatever, like, why are we getting together? I think that gives people enough structure such that they can, kind of work it into their calendar, that kind of stuff, as opposed to sort of the ad hoc get together type stuff. Because I think it is important that people know what they're committing to with the community. You might accidentally find yourself in a community in the sense that like you became involved with a group of people, and then you kind of like realize one day, like, wow, I know these people really well, they know me really well, like I rely on them in some interesting ways, they rely on me in some interesting ways. I didn't anticipate this, or I didn't intend this, but now I'm here.
Do you think depending on one another is an important part of community? Certainly,
in that body analogy, right? Like if a part of the body is sick, the body is sick. Like if the part of the body is wounded, the body is wounded. And so it's that mutual dependence, and
Yeah, it's interesting how actually, like I had an arm injury a few weeks ago, and you might want to say like, oh, my arm hurts, or like, my arm is like not broken, but like, I had this and it's very localized to this area, and then I'm aware of like all the things that I can't do because of that. It's my right arm and I'm right-handed, so that makes certain things weird. Like even just like hugging somebody, I have to like be very intentional and slow to like avoid the kind of position that hurts.
And your left arm is going to compensate. And so your left arm's going to have to do a lot more.
Yeah, left arm's going to do a lot more. And so you just realize like, okay, it's not just like localized to that area. It has a lot of outward consequences.
I think people find that really like satisfying in some ways, of like being the kind of person that other people depend upon, and like I think that gives a certain dignity, to life. You got a mosquito on your forehead.
They don't bite, right?
I can give you evidence, visual evidence of that they do.
So I'll fan my head then. No, I thought sometimes you have these like rural creatures that are like very large and scary looking, but they're fine.
Exactly.
They're just cute,
like daddy long legs.
But in this case, I will fan my head. So.
Practices for community. Like, how do you go from being a community space
like
to being an actual community?
You've experimented with this,
we have,
and you've really learned how to even articulate like what's happening. Like even just to notice first of all, like like I'm going to a place every week, and there's all these people here, and I talk with them, and it feels good sometimes, but somehow it's like it's not. You understand that there's a distinction, that it's not actually like a community, and at least for yourself. And just
another simple one that I observed is like proximity. Like where do you live relative to one another is a really important one. It is very difficult to have community the further apart you live. If you can walk to each other's house or walk to each other's location in less than 5 minutes, that is a tremendous enabler for all of the community type stuff. So a couple times that I mentioned last night that I was like coming out of grad school. Was feeling frustrated with some of the experiences that I had with the church, and had talked to some other Christians who were having a similar experience. And so we began to meet together in a home, like house church setting. And that formed into a community where we got to know each other really well, started spending time together, cooking meals together, all that kind of stuff. And so...
what I love about this particular group is like, you use the word community, and you're talking about 5 people actually. Yeah. And it's not like, sometimes we think community and we need like, the neighborhood, the 20 people, like at this large group, and you're just like, it's like 5 people. Like you can literally like look at each other at the same time and sit in a circle. Like it's so small. And why is it so clear for you that that's community?
I think the knownness. Like I knew them very well, and they knew me very well. They could ask me like real questions. They could tell when I'm bluffing. They could tell when I'm not doing well versus how I normally am, and kind of call that out. There's and then I think that sort of shared purpose. In that case, there was a spiritual goal of like encouraging one another in following Jesus. It was like the goal there, and so we had that. And then just we invested the time. We were like committed to getting together at least on Sunday mornings, and then also in addition throughout the week. So I guess there was a commitment level too. I do think it's important to have commitment in a community of like an explicit, like I will be here. So because you can only depend on people if you know that they're going to keep coming. Could you share
also the way it's working in your current church, like what's required of people and?
Yeah, it is an interesting. So the church that I go to now is like evangelical, like generic evangelical. Basically, we're not affiliated with any denomination. And what that means, and the reason that's important, is because that means that the elders of the church come together with like the input of the members of the church, get to establish the bylaws or like set the rules, so to speak, more or less, of like how are we going to operate. And one of the things that they've chosen to do is we have about, I guess we're at right around 200 members now, so it's a pretty large church. Definitely not anywhere near the like thousands of person mega churches that exist in the U.S. here, but fairly large group. And in order to become a member of the church, you have to go through a membership process. And one of the things that you commit to in the membership process is that you will join a community group. And what a community group is it is a group that you will be assigned to that meets in each other's homes on one night of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night. I think there's even like a Saturday morning group for people who are who like work nights or whatever during the week. So you'll be assigned to meet with these folks and get together for an hour and a half or so, study scripture together, pray together, check in with one another, sometimes share a meal, that kind of stuff. But that's not optional, right? So we get together on Sunday mornings for like corporate worship, the whole body worshiping together.
Corporate the sense of body.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
All of these body metaphors are like really important. So yeah, corporate, and not in the sense of corporation as a company. Yeah. But yeah, exactly. The body comes together. all the whole body comes together on Sunday morning, but then you're also required to be a member of a community group. And if you're not able to, or going through a season of life or whatever, if you're refusing to be part of that, then you're basically refusing to be known. Like that's where you will really, where people will really get to know you, where you'll share meals together. I was going to mention, like, meals are a huge, important part of community. Eating together is like a
breaking bread.
Breaking bread, is a formative part. So
so
that is a little unusual.
You can't be a part. I mean, you can't become a member.
You can't just come on Sunday morning and be a member. Sorry.
Okay.
It's not an option.
Yeah. Like, how do people feel about, I mean, I guess it's, maybe then you're getting into the kind of denominational differences or whatever. Like, how is that perceived, either by the people inside of, by the members, and also by people who maybe would like to and they can't for those reasons, or just comparing that to, like, the way other churches work or something? Like, how is that perceived?
Yeah, it's interesting. In most cases, I think people are, we talked about, like, people are generally hungry for relationship, and so in most cases it's very positive. It's like, well, of course I would want to do that, and there might be some nervousness there of, like, I really haven't opened my home up or opened my life up to someone else yet, and I'm a little nervous about that, but it's not a negative feeling.
It's interesting, like, to feel
discomfort.
Required to open your home somehow. Like, maybe you're comfortable, maybe you have guests over or not, and it's interesting to have that, like,
it's a requirement,
forced on
you. And in some ways you're choosing it, right? You are going through the membership process. You can choose not to, and you can say, wait, this is not for me. But by and large, people are the positive, like, really positive response to it. I had a really interesting experience a few months ago. My church also does, like, kind of interesting things to try and foster those relationships beyond just your community group and Sunday morning. And so one of the things they did was they had a men's meet night where, like, any of the guys could sign up from the church, and you would be sent to a group.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was a barbecue.
It is a barbecue.
Okay.
Yes. It's basically a barbecue. It's like barbecues, like distributed barbecues, where there'd be like 5 to 10 guys at, like, these 10 different houses.
Okay, so it is meat. Yeah.
It is meat. M-E-A-T. M-E-E-T, M-E-A-T. Both apply.
We should call it the men's meat.
Meat. Yes. Exactly. I will suggest that change. Put in a pull request. But yeah, so I got together. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'd love to get together and eat meat. So this is definitely small town North Carolina, right? It's like, sorry, this is not men's veg night. This is men's meat night.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, so I show up, and there's like 6 guys from the church, and several of them are new guys there that have just started coming in, like, the last 3 or 4 months or 5 months, and so I don't really know them. And there's one guy there that I'd known pretty well for a couple of years, but the other 5 are fairly new to me. And I had been reading a book about friendship and had been, like, reflecting on who were my closest friends, like, who knows me the best, and, like, how much do they know about me, like, how much do they know about my story, how much do I know about theirs, and I realized that I had, like, a small number of friends that know me really, really well, and I have, like, a larger number that, I kind of thought that through. And so we were at this men's meet, and people were catching up, and, like, I was like, I just proposed it as a question. I was like, I'm curious, like, how many friends do you guys have, like, that know your story, like, really, really, really well, and theirs really, really well? And when was the last time you saw them or, like, hung out with them? Like, how do you spend time with them? And here's 5 random guys that I don't know, and then the one guy that I know pretty well, in their 40s, 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
And my guess was that their answer is going to be they have, like, 2, maybe 3 friends. Not a large number of friends. It was really sad. The answers were 0 and 1. Like, I think 2 of the guys had, like, 1 friend, and then when I asked them about this, like, really close friend of theirs, like, when did you last see them? When did you last talk to them? They hadn't spoken to that person in, like, 9 months. And I was like, wow, okay. And then a couple of the other guys were I commend them for their honesty, but they were like, yeah, no one knows me like that. I mean, I'm married and I have a good relationship with my wife. She knows me and that kind of stuff, but I don't have another guy friend that actually knows my story. I didn't even know how to respond. I felt like it was one of those situations where like you ask a question, you're like, I wish I could take the question back. Like I feel like I've embarrassed you by asking the question, and like I don't want to embarrass you. Like I'm not. But yeah, I think that I had read about statistics about that, about people being generally lonely and men in particular not having close friendships.
Yeah.
But I was surprised to like be faced with like real examples of it beyond the stats.
Would you say that applies to you?
No, I feel like I have.
Which is maybe why it was a shock.
Yeah, that was why it was a shock.
Yeah.
It was the difference. I knew that I had been intentional about developing friendships and had built several very close friendships. I probably have, 4 guys in particular that like know me, know my entire story inside and out, and I know what's going on with them. And one guy I talk to every 2 weeks, another guy I talk to once a month because he lives in Texas, so we like get together on the phone. Another guy lives in Durham. We get together regularly. And then I'm also in the process of like building relationships with people here in Fuquay and like growing specific relationships with guys so that I have more in that group. And then I probably have a much larger group of like 10 or 12 guys that are like around that group of 3 or 4. So yeah, I was just really surprised.
You said like every 2 weeks, and I noticed like the friend that was coming to visit your wife, like you were talking about how it's good to have this mechanism where it's like it just happens every week, and like how do you, like what are like your the mechanisms that you think are helpful to encourage these friendships that you have and to deepen them and to avoid feeling this kind of superficialness? I have this perception that for you, perhaps myself or for other people, like, oh, you don't want to do something every X because then it just feels kind of mechanical or something. But now I'm actually just like, well, why? Actually, if it's a friend, it's like I would like to see my friend, and we probably have stuff to talk about, and like, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's been. My favorite mechanism, as you talk about it right now, is something that's been happening for 3 or 4 years now. So it's been going on for a while. There's my house backs up to like a couple different houses that all have kids and that are similar to the ages of my kids and dads and moms that live in those houses. And so I've gotten to know the dads that live in those houses, and we live walking distance from a coffee shop. And so Wednesday mornings at 6:45 in the morning, the dads all meet and walk over to the coffee shop together.
But this is your plan, or
this is our plan.
Kind of Jess's concept?
Actually, it was my friend Zach who came up with the idea and initiated it, and I'm like all for it. It started out with just 3 of us, 3 guys, maybe like 3-4 years ago, and we've just slowly invited guys from the neighborhood, so that it's now there's probably 6 guys or so that come from the neighborhood, and then beyond that we're like, why not extend the invitation even further to people who are not in our neighborhood but are also walking distance to the coffee shop? And so some mornings it's like 8 guys, some mornings it's 4, that kind of thing. And so we walk over to the coffee shop, and then we catch up with each other and like ask how our weeks are going and that kind of stuff, get coffee, and then someone is responsible for bringing a question of the day. And the question of the day might be as simple as like, what's your favorite vacation you've ever gone on? Or, so it might be something kind of fairly surface level.
But it prompts recounting your past a little bit maybe, or just making yourself more known.
Exactly.
Okay.
That knownness.
More known,
it brings up these threads, which if you're attentive and you want and you feel like you need to, you can pull on that thread.
Yeah, at the moment or later.
At the moment or later. Yeah. Exactly. It's like, hey, I remember you talked about this thing the other day. Can you tell me more about that?
Love it. Why is it important that they're guys? Like, why is it important that the guys do things together? Oh man, so this is such a good question. So when I first started like forming community, when I was in grad school, and it's got like really started to be more intentional about it. I didn't distinguish between guys and girls. It's like, it's like we're community, we're humans, we're loving each other. Like this is good, all that kind of stuff. And without going into a lot of detail, what I discovered over the next couple of years is the
mutual attraction, or like the attraction between across genders, just made things complicated in the context of community. Okay. Now, obviously, I have communities now that are cross genders, but I definitely I had sort of like an idealistic kind of view of I just want to treat all humans the same and that kind of stuff. And I've come to respect that was idealism and not actually very functional. And it was just silly little things of like, you know, this girl would like this guy does not like this girl the way that this girl likes this guy, so she gets her feelings hurt, but then this girl and this guy do start dating, and then, you know, this other girl is jealous and like all this kind of stuff. And you know, that kind of, it just made it harder on the community to stay knit together because there were sort of those complications. I'll put it that way. And then I think in the other case that I've noticed with especially the guys, so the ladies in my neighborhood go on Thursday mornings. So the guys go on Wednesday mornings, girls go on Thursday mornings. The other context that I've noticed is that, at least for some guys, they feel more able to open up about themselves when there are not women around. Yeah. And maybe vice versa. I don't know. I'm not a woman. Don't hang out with women. I can't hang out with a group of all women and actually be there, right? Like, it's like an unobservable kind of situation. Really? I guess I could put like one of these things like in the middle of the thing. And, like,
you can be there on screen.
Anyway, I have experience with being a guy in a cross-gender group and what that group can be like in terms of them opening up with one another. Okay. I also have experience with being a guy in a group of all guys, and I've seen how the conversation goes differently, especially for certain guys. Seems like they're better able to open up. I don't have an experience, kind of by definition, of being a member of a group of all women who are opening up with one another, because then it would not be a group of all women. So,
fine, just curious.
I was making a silly tautological statement.
It's all good. It's all good. I'm curious a little bit, like, where you get your. I'm calling it like inquisitiveness, but it's the word I use to describe, like, you know, you have like a list of questions to ask people, or this routine of like guys meeting for coffee on Wednesday. It's not yours maybe, but like you go along, but it seems like a natural fit for like how you would. You're just like, yeah, totally down for that. That's good, and it makes sense to you. Like, I feel like there's a kind of I don't know, like talent, habit, skill around people and relating to people and asking questions and figuring out, like, we just had a whole conversation before this about like the tech stuff, zero data, and like you had things you were curious about, and you told me about the structure of like how you'd like to organize that. Like, I feel like that all kind of goes together for me, and so I'm using this word like inquisitiveness, but like do you agree with what I'm talking about, or at least my view of that, and like if so, like what is that?
I think I think I've naturally have a sort of inborn desire to know and understand things is one of the pieces that like I want to understand how things work, and I want to understand how and I think I want to like simplify or come up with like a taxonomy or like a framework or some kind of like, let me boil it down into something that I can kind of hold down onto, especially like a phrase or something. Yeah, I want to synthesize. Yeah, exactly. That's a good way of putting it. So I think both of those things are natural to me. What has interestingly not come naturally, that I've had to like learn through trial and error, and like I've had to learn that it is healthy for me and do it like brushing my teeth as opposed to being automatic, is actually building relationships with people and getting to know people well. So a part of my like backstory, a painful part of my story, is I actually got married at 21 to a girl that I dated when I was in high school. She came to college. We went to college for a little bit. I was 21, she was 19. And after 3 years, the marriage, for a variety of reasons, ended, and mostly through her desire to end it. And that was a really painful period for me. And at the time, I'm like 24, 25-ish. I'm sad, lonely, hurting. And so the natural thing to do when you're in a situation like that is like reach out to people who can, you know, comfort you. Yeah, support you, yeah. And so I went to do that and I realized that I didn't actually have anyone who knew me deeply, that I knew deeply. Like I didn't have anyone. And so I basically, in my typical structured way, I like thought about the last 7 or 8 guys that I had like talked to or gotten coffee with or like played ultimate frisbee with or whatever, and I just reached out to all 8 of them and invited all of them to coffee, and then one-on-one sat down and like verbal diarrhea'd my problems onto them.
Okay.
I was so I feel like I was like drowning guy grabbing for life, like life vest. Like I didn't care. I had no filter. I was hurting and I needed help. And so I was like, "You're a dude." Wow. Of that group, all but one of them basically treated me like I had the plague and it might catch.
Oh no, sorry.
And just totally scattered. And I looking back, like I don't blame them for it. Like they were young too. They didn't have a lot of maturity. They didn't know how to have. It's not like they were equipped. To deal with,
ready to handle that kind of thing. Yeah, exactly.
And I hadn't built a relationship for them that would like lead one to expect that what's about to happen is you're about to get to the depth of this guy's soul. But fortunately, one of those guys did kind of stick by me and like got together with me regularly and like kind of helped me through that period. And then through over the next 6 months, I met 2 other guys that are still friends now.
Nice.
And who have walked through the hard stuff with me. But I realized that, I had not built friendships or relationships, and that it wasn't natural for me to like go deep with people. And so I literally started asking people to teach me how to do it. Like what? And that, so the 2 questions that I use with people when I'm first meeting them, I got from some guy who was talking about how he gets to know people and builds relationship with them, and I'm like, those are good questions. I'm just writing those down. Now I'm going to use this. So it's definitely been a learned habit, and a chosen habit, not a natural thing. Whereas my wife is completely the opposite. Like she is naturally relational. Has friendships that she's had since she was literally 5 or 6 years old. That she's still close friends with those people. Just like.
This also reminds me of another thread that I think about often. Like I don't know how much there is to say about this, but the power of, or the importance of, people in your life seeing you go through different phases. And perhaps like your wife has had a lot of experience with this, because you said like her family's been here for like 150 years or something, and so like it's a lot of seeing, and it's a lot of knowing what people have gone through. And I think about this in terms of someone, myself, moving around a lot, and perhaps other people who also move around, and like disconnecting from friends either by choice or by circumstances, unintentionally. Like to have people only know you in a certain context or in a certain period of your life, and then they're out of your life after that for various reasons. And I just kind of appreciate, like now more so than, because I think before I was like kind of dismissive of how important relationships are, and I would move on from one place to another, one context to another, like be it different schools or different cities or whatever, and I would just kind of let go and be like, okay, well, I'm doing this now, and not really, and not really valuing those connections, and I've grown to appreciate just the sense of like, okay, this person kind of knows, like they knew me when I was there, and they see me at this stage, and they've seen me at this stage, and so it just, I don't know how to describe what that feels like, but it's like a feeling of being known, I guess, or being understood, or someone appreciating that. I think also just of myself, a lot of the things that I do, perhaps they're not extraordinary, but if you put them in the context of what I've gone through in my life, which is not necessarily like traumatic or something, but just like, it's amazing because of the fact that I was over there before. So I'm just appreciating that, and I'm curious about, like, it just reminded me of that when you were speaking about this part of your life. And
I have a friend, Danvers, and we catch up regularly. He's one of those guys who knows me really well, and it's fun when you've known each other for a long time, because he can, we've known each other for like 15 years, 16 years now, like pretty darn well. And so he was telling me a story this past week about something he had experienced that week. And then he told me how he responded to this thing that he's experienced. And he just told me the fact of like what what happened and what he said, and we both burst into laughter. If anyone were listening to that conversation, they'd be like, there was nothing funny about that. Like, why? What is the humor in that response? And the humor is, it's so unlikely for Danvers to respond to that situation that way, and we both know that. He knows that about himself, I know that about him, and so there's this shared like experience of seeing how different he has become from the person that he was. That is actually really neat.
Cool.
How do you think about? I was actually thinking about that last night as we were chatting and just getting to know each other better, and realized that you have traveled a lot. You've been in a lot of different places in the world, and some for a few days, some for a few weeks, some for a few months. Like, how do you think about, the value of like long-term relationships, or building and maintaining those long-term relationships? Like, is this a lifestyle that you want to continue for the rest of your life? Like, or is there something like, is this like a season of your life? And you, if you were to think about a roots setting season where you would like put down roots somewhere, how would you think about that transition? When would you know that it was time to make that? I don't know, like lots of...
There's a lot in there. I think, I can go in reverse maybe. Like,
sure.
I'm definitely not interested in just certainly like changing places every couple of days for the rest of my life. So you can say that.
Well, that's a good thing you've learned over the last couple of weeks.
I have learned that. I've learned that years ago, actually.
Yeah.
And now I'm doing it in this U.S. trip consciously, and I know where my limits are, and I'm trying to be attentive to those limits. But I would like actually to just stay in places for like 6 months to a year, or like several years even. Actually, in 2020, I had this feeling that like done enough traveling and moving around, bouncing around rapidly, and like I would like to just. Why I want to stop that is because I am feeling a lack of being involved in something bigger than myself, like a community, or like having people know me, and also other people feeling like I know them, you know, like to stick around and to feel like I'm around and you can trust me to be around and I can be there for you, like these kinds of things. A deeper sense of rootedness in community. I don't know if I would call that like roots necessarily, but just feeling of being more involved in some kind of community setting. So I was looking for that in around 2020 before this public health thing happened, and it's funny. And I had actually bought tickets to go to Berlin, and I had bought a ticket to go to Egypt. And so I was going to spend 2 months in each one and just like pretend like I lived there. Because I've been to both of those places before, and I thought like, okay, I have the best feeling about these places, and I'm just going to like spend 2 months in each one and
evaluate and
pick which one feels the best,
and
then just stay there for 5 years or something, or find a way to do that. That was just like an idea I had. And because it was 2020 and the world was like closing down at that point, I ended up like, first of all, my flights were canceled to those places. But before those flights got cancelled, I thought like, oh, I'll just like go back to Brazil. I was just leaving Brazil, and I'm like, let me go back there, because actually I think I really like it now, and I would like to just spend a month there, and I feel like maybe things might close down, and like maybe it'd be cool to be there. I ended up spending like from March 2020 to August 2021 there in 2 different cities in Brazil, and it was like, oh, okay, so this could be a cool place, you know, and I don't have to go to those other places. Like I could see myself spending 5 years here. In that moment, it was sort of forced on me because of the travel limits at that time, but I was enjoying it, and I could see myself continuing that way. Even if those limits weren't there, I could choose to stay there. So I was craving that, and I was like trying to get that during the time. And then again, that's a particular time to be there and try to like cultivate community, because people are just isolating and staying in their houses. But whatever, I ended up leaving for various reasons, and then it felt like, oh no, I'm making another break again. Like, am I doing this again? Am I leaving again? And you know, I was in Toronto for some months to stay with my dad, and then I don't really think I gave the community thing a shot there. Like, I was kind of open to it, but it was winter. And then I left again. I left to Germany. I was part of this residency, sort of co-living with 10, 20 people, which is an interesting...
Sounds like a community.
Really interesting community experience. It's kind of why it's become a big topic, in more so than before. and then just sticking around Berlin for like 9 months, and then I left again, you know, and I feel like, oh no, am I leaving again? Am I doing the same thing? So I have a bunch of uncertainties around how exactly I would do something like that, in as much as I want to be more still and like stay in a place and cultivate deeper connections and be a part of a community and be there for people and be involved. Like I want all of those things, and at the same time, like I just don't stick around, and then that gets into some other things of like even like the places that I've been in for like over 6 months and like a week or like shorter. I've met people in both of those ranges, and in some ways I feel like the connection becomes similar. I don't want to say the same, but I'm not there, and so it's hard to keep in touch. And I used to be somebody who was into like digital messaging and keeping in touch with like WhatsApp and these kinds of things, and not so into it now, but I used to be frustrated that people didn't want to do that, because that was basically the best way I had, and it is hard. Like it is hard across time zones, and they have their own life and their own schedule and their own friends who are there, and like things are happening around them, and so I've developed some sympathy around that. And now, of course, like I don't expect anybody to do any of those things, and I myself don't even do that. And I'm bad at those things now, because I am where I am. But there's.
Do you have a couple of like relationships that have threaded through the last like 4 or 5 years?
Yes, and I'm grateful for those.
How did those like come to be, and like how do you maintain those relationships while living in different countries for longer periods, travel, like all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I was trying to avoid mentioning specific people, but well, I can just say, yeah, like. And it's not linear, like in the sense that you get to know somebody. I mean, even for example, my good friend Kevin that we had talked about yesterday, like he was the first person I met through couch surfing, like in 2012. Okay, and like when we met, like I think we got along, and I really liked him, but we weren't like close friends right after that, you know. So we were just sort of acquaintances for some years, I would say. And after a few visits, like over the years, going to New York, visiting him, then we started to get a bit more closer, and to the point where he was one of my closest friends, up until the point he passed away. So it's like.
Yeah, and you're right. The relationship develops in different ways.
And I think it's the same thing with these other connections that I have. Like, we met and we were close in that moment, and then we went our separate ways, and we tried keeping in touch, and we were out of touch for some time, and then we came back and we had some calls regularly, and then or we just found a place to meet somewhere on the globe, and like. But I don't know. I don't feel like there's a real method to any of this. Like it's a bit madness. It's just a bit like
kind of agree. Yeah.
Everything is just different based on the person, and like, you know, the way I am now, like on this U.S. trip, like I'm meeting people. Like in Chicago, I'd met somebody I hadn't spoken with. I've only met once 5 years ago, and we didn't speak since then. And like we had this very important moment. Yeah. There are people who like I met 2 people in. New York some days ago that I met in the residency last year, and one of them I actually met like on the year exactly before, like exactly 1 year after, like October 14th. There's people that I've only met through the internet, and we've had some Zoom calls. We're basically like Twitter friends, you know, and we got a chance to meet. And somebody who there's another person who's a friend who had stayed over at my place in Montreal a few years ago, and like we haven't had a chance to keep in touch much because they're super busy, but like we had a week together. So it's all like differently shaped, and I have different ways to keep in touch with all of them, but like basically like it's just I've tried to just be available for them. I tend to at least reach out to people like once in a year, and I'll just say like, hey, greetings from like wherever I am, like I hope you're doing well, like would love to hear from you, or just let me know what you're doing, or if not, that's okay, just letting you know I'm thinking about you. And I just try to like send out that way. No response necessary. And then try to get on calls if I can, try to meet when I can. I let people know where I'm going. So I just try to give people the options, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, we talked a little bit last night about this phrase, like making your own luck, of where you're. And I think one thing that's common about the picture that you're painting here is that in all these cases, you're you are putting yourself out there in some ways. Like you're taking action that would foster that may or may not result in a connection or a deepening of friendship or a period in which you guys can get to know each other better. And I think that single behavior is what sets apart people who are growing in friendship from people who are like lacking friends. Is like you're taking actions to create situations where you can become friends with people or deepen specific relationships, and that's I think that's really cool. A lot of ways that you're doing that, from reaching out once a year, or communicating where you're going, or just saying yes when you're invited to do things. Like saying yes is a big deal.
Underrated.
It is.
Definitely.
I do think that's where people get bogged down, is they don't take those actions. They don't say yes. They get distracted effectively by their lives, and they and years pass and they realize that they haven't reached out to anyone. They haven't taken time to go visit someone. They haven't
I try to sympathize with people in that they are busy, and it I used to not understand, like, how is it possible that this person couldn't think of me or respond to me after like months, or like but now I just kind of I understand, and I can sympathize with that, and I try to be patient, and I also learn to just accept what people have to offer, right? And sometimes if they just have like an afternoon to meet with you, I wholeheartedly accept that, and I don't that's what there is, and I'm happy that we can at least have that chance, and I'm happy to be present for that moment. So you're in this tech bubble, tech world, tech sphere, let's say, we both are, and I kind of feel like the topic of spirituality, it's not something that I would bring up in those spaces, because I think it skews towards like people that basically don't believe in those things, or maybe they're uncomfortable, or they just don't like it when people talk about whatever reason there is. Like, it's sort of, I don't feel like it's welcome. And this is just my perception. You can tell me how you feel. So my inclination is generally like I wouldn't go there, or I wouldn't expect it to go there. And I just heard about you, and you're just like, like one of the things that I ask people is like about these. It's like you specifically go there with people from that world, and I'm just like, wow, that's what's that like, and like how do people receive what you're bringing to them?
Yeah, that's
what are you bringing to them? Also?
Yeah, no, that's a great. So one, definitely have experienced the tech world as, it's weird. It's weird that it's like this off-topic / rude thing to talk about. I don't know.
Rude even.
It's like, why are you bringing up questions about ultimate reality? It's like, well, like, isn't ultimate reality kind of interesting? Like, I don't know. It seems surprising, and yet I can talk about like physics or some other aspect of that's sort of within the accepted scientific canon, but like as soon as you go beyond that, of like, well, here's something that I don't think is measurable, but I think is real. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Could I, and I hope this doesn't derail what you're saying, just to clarify, like, is there a distinction for you between religion and spirituality in this context? Because when you're saying ultimate reality, like, you can talk about that later if you want.
No, I mean, I think my view is pretty easily summarized of like, in that I believe that there is a spiritual reality which is larger than like physical reality. Like what we experience right now, and like this physical nature of this is actually like a subset of ultimate reality. Ultimate reality contains things that are not currently accessible or measurable, but are every bit as real and true as the things that we can actually touch. And so it's like it's the contra to the materialist view. Of like, the materialist is, well, the physical and the measurable is all that exists, and and my view is like, no, there's actually a larger spiritual reality that's around us all the time, that we're impacted by, that we are eternal spiritual beings whether we like it or not. And it is true in the sense that it's not a different perspective. It is a reality of who you are. And what you are composed of, that you are composed of soul and body, and no believing differently impacts that truth in the same way that gravity exists whether you like it or not. So if that makes sense.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. So that's the larger perspective in which I'm coming from, and so it seems like talking about that larger perspective would be a really interesting thing to talk about. Like, Like a very natural one I think to talk about is death. Like what actually happens after you die? Like does anything happen? Is there a greater life that you're entering into? What does that look like? And yet, like you mentioned, that's kind of a rude conversation topic. I did double major in philosophy and computer science, so it was a little bit more accepted in the philosophy world. So I enjoyed that because it seemed like people were like signing up for that conversation if they were philosophy majors, whereas computer scientists just like nope, hard nope,
unsubscribe.
Yeah, exactly. And so I've definitely felt that kind of discomfort or like almost like a sadness of like, oh, I just have to like keep this area of my life like behind a curtain when I'm in these circles. But I think in the last several years, something that has shifted is as I've gotten more interested in knowing people and knowing people well, and I've started to ask, like, become more bold about asking like deeper questions about their life. It's like you always get to the spiritual. You don't have to try. There's not like a set of topics that's over here and another set that's over here. It's like once you start getting to know someone, they have a belief, some belief. They have thought about the question, what happens after they die? They have thought about the question, are ghosts real? Like, do I have a spirit? Like the question has gone through their mind, and they have some set of beliefs that governs their current like understanding of that question. And usually that question is pretty deeply tied into their identity, whether they like it or not. In fact, they might be very resentful about the fact that like religion or spirituality, these like category of conversations, is like anchored into their identity in a way that they don't like. So I find that like I don't have to try to talk about spirituality. I just talk about the person and like what's going on with them. And this is part of you. And I'm not trying to convert them to any particular view or what is virtue, like what is good, what is right. The nature of truth is like is the world relative or is there absolute truth? And all of these things have bearing upon like the way that we actually live our lives. And so one that is like super common when I'm talking with people is they'll tell you about their story, and they're talking about their relationship with one of their parents or their relationship with a sibling or a past girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. And there's like clearly bitterness there that they're experiencing. It's like tangible, like their body posture, the way that maybe their voice changes, that kind of stuff. And they're frustrated about this relationship and they don't know what to do about it. And sometimes they're, angry, unresolved stuff with that person, that kind of stuff. And trying to listen well and ask questions, it comes down to like, what do they believe about the nature of forgiveness and like relationships to one another, and like why do bad things happen in the world? Why did this person allow this thing to happen? How should I relate to them in the future? What boundaries should I draw in my life between this person and myself? And like all of these questions are spiritual in the sense that there's no materialistic answer for that.
There's belief embedded in it.
There's belief and faith, and is the world ultimately good or evil? Are people ultimately good or evil? Like all of those core beliefs influence how they interact in their relationships, and it is either a source of tremendous strength and vitality in their life, or it's like a area where they're really struggling and they need someone to like help draw those threads out so that they can look at them and deal with them, because it's rude to talk about it in a lot of the contexts that they're in, even though it's causing them tremendous pain.
So considering that this is how you approach, and these are the kinds of questions that you're asking, like again, going back to this tech world where like a more direct discussion about some things that are very easily considered spiritual would be rude. So bringing this into the space, how are you perceived? And do they have any light bulbs go off or something? Is it just like, oh, I just enjoyed this conversation, or like what's the feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about like knownness a lot, and I think people are generally lonely and want to be known, and they appreciate it when people draw them out and like hear what they have to say. Yep. So I think as long as I'm entering into that in a way that is respectful of their sort of sovereignty, I guess, or their decision making, and that I'm not trying to convince them of anything. I think that's the important thing, is like when they say, well, this is true, or this is what I believe to be true about the world, I don't come back at them with like, well, Anselm's 5 arguments would say that, yada, yada, yada was true. So how do you, like, this is not an argument, like, or a discussion about, like, we're trying to, come, let us, face off. It's more, I don't know, I guess it's more like Socratic and question driven. And so I try to be, I think the hard part is that some of those conversations can be really, it's not so much about I'm perceived as like bringing up spiritual stuff, which might be rude. I think it's more like being sensitive to only going with that person as far as they want to go and not pushing further.
Yeah.
But also as you get to know people better, like, and you truly become friends, sometimes there's a time for like asking a really hard question or saying a really hard thing. And there's been a couple conversations with guys that started as technical. Our conversation started because we followed each other on Twitter. And then over the years, over the last couple of years, we've gotten to know each other better. We've spent time together and that kind of stuff. And I remember one guy in particular, like the last time we got together, he was telling me about some struggles he was having with his project. And as I like pulled on that thread, it was like really struggles he was having with his partner in the project, and that person's relationship with this third person. And as I'm kind of pulling further and further, and he's like, this is what they're telling me, and I don't know if I believe that, and that kind of stuff. And I just had to look him straight in the eye and say, like, I love you, and so I'm going to tell you this. This has been my experience of you over the last several years.
Oh, wow.
And I said, kind of laid it out. And I think he was silent for like 2 minutes, which is a very, very long time if you're in conversation with someone. It's like, and at the end of that 2 minutes, he said, thank you. I need to give that some thought. Thank you for telling me that.
Wow.
And I was like, I mean, it felt like such a risk to say that. It's like, that could be the end of the relationship, maybe. I don't know how he's going to respond to this.
Yeah.
But like,
I love the preface though. I mean, you knew something hard was coming, and you just prefaced it with like, I'm doing this because I care about you, and I want to see you in a good place, and yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Could we also maybe talk about, like, you told me that you used to be somebody who was like trying to convert everybody.
Yeah.
And then
15, 16-year-old me got to figure out the truth, and then it's pretty easy. You just have to tell people what the truth is.
Because it's the truth, right?
Because it's true.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So, like, what made you change your?
Oh man.
What did you do there?
I think the biggest, like, the simplest way to describe it is that I realized that life with God is a relationship as well. Like, the reason that I get so much joy out of being known and knowing others and connecting with others and relating to them and drawing people out and having people like care for me, that isn't incidental. That, I believe, that is created into the fabric of the way the world operates, and it's created by a being who also enjoys the exact same thing. So to continue on the college story for a second, because I think it's relevant here, I went to college, hung out with a bunch of Christian groups, did not find people that were willing to engage. Went to a intro to philosophy class.
Engage in what?
Engage in these like deeper conversations, right?
Okay.
The inquisitiveness,
okay.
Right? They weren't
question things.
It was not it was rude.
Okay.
Rude in a different way, in a Christian context.
You've been rude your whole life, man.
I don't mean to be, but I can make people uncomfortable for sure.
Okay.
But I went to an intro to philosophy class and met a guy who was a hardcore atheist. Had arguments galore for why God did not exist. He had many propositional statements that demonstrated that God, the idea of God existing, was ludicrous. We became really great friends. We both loved playing tennis. We played tennis together. We took classes together, and we would go to IHOP and hang out until 2 a.m. having arguments in the fun, friendly, sparring way about the existence of God.
Arguments over pancakes. I think that's that's a concept that could go.
Some of my fondest memories. It was great. He was inquisitive. He had a completely different set of beliefs than me, but he was willing to like go there with me. And so It was awesome. I so appreciate him even to this day.
So you were saying that relationship with God, it's not about having like a set of binary views in your bag and then making sure everybody has the same...
Right. Checking your card, your truth card. Do you have the right things punched out on your truth card?
Okay.
If you don't, then I need to correct you.
Okay.
Right? Like I need to make sure that you understand that... And it's not that there is not truth. There's a subtle difference here between saying there aren't true things, or that it's saying that the life that God intended for us is not one that is dictated or gated by a set of propositional beliefs. It's actually a relationship that he intended with the creation. So we're invited into a relationship with a being who relates to us in a loving way, a perfectly loving way, in the way that we find glimmers of in our relationship with others. Does that make sense? Yeah. So from possessing truth to having a relationship is the shift for me.
But why is it okay now?
Because ultimately what I desire for them is that they would come into relationship with God. But it's not my responsibility to do that either. Like, I'm not...
You're talking about them making their own choices.
They can make their own choices, absolutely, and they certainly will.
And you want them to make their own choice and come to it on their terms. And
because that's how relationships work. I can't force you...
That is what a relationship
to go
is.
into a relationship with this person, even though I think it'd be good for you.
Right.
I'm like, Jim, you must become friends with Jim Rosano. It is good for you. That would be super weird. And if I tried to like argue you into getting into a relationship with Jim, it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work.
Yeah. Perhaps as kids, you may take your toddler to another toddler and say, you two play together now, you know?
Well, that's and that's what I do try to do, is like, I'm open about the relationship that I have with God. And so I can tell you about my relationship with Jim, so to speak. That might make you want to have a relationship with Jim. And if you did, then I can make the introduction. But it's not my responsibility, and I can't argue you into it. All I can do is be open about my own kind of experience.
Do you have time for one more question?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Are there things that you feel closed-minded about that you would share?
So, close-minded is such an interesting word. So I view most of my beliefs as like things that I'm more or less certain about. And so there are things that I would be more certain about, but I wouldn't consider myself to be closed-minded, because that inquisitive nature of me is like, oh, you have a different perspective on this? Let's talk about it. I've actually thought about this a whole lot.
Yeah. So is there something that you wouldn't want to hear somebody's beliefs about, or just... I guess that's how I guess everybody has a different concept of what it means to be closed-minded, but I feel like it would be... Like, I would consider that open-minded, that like you have certain beliefs and you're willing to like entertain, or
not just willing, kind of excited too.
Yeah,
it's
like, looking forward to the
this
discussion.
Is great.
So that's
but what would I be uncomfortable? There are certain things that I'd be uncomfortable discussing.
Yeah.
Like I would probably be willing to do it by just kind of nature of who I am, but they would be uncomfortable. It's interesting because it's really hard to know what things am I actually closed-minded about. You know, like I don't know if other people possess an awareness of, maybe they do, of like, nope, I am not willing to entertain discussion about that.
So I guess that doesn't sound like something you'd say.
No, it's just so anything. Far from anything I would say.
Cool.
As you have gotten to know me, like, what are we going to talk about now? I'm excited. Let's talk about it.
Amazing. Anything else you want to share or ask or talk about?
No, I would just say like, thank you for asking all these questions.
Oh,
it feeds into my natural inquisitiveness and desire to talk about whatever. So
it is a recursive process here.
I really appreciate it and enjoyed it. So,
yeah.
Thanks.
Where can people find out more about you?
I do have a website, jessmart.in. So it's my name with a dot before the I. That has most of my stuff that I'm doing on the internet, newsletter that I write, software that I work on, that kind of stuff.
Do you write mostly about this tech stuff and like all the other things we talked about, like community and...
I actually do write a fair bit about that. I haven't published it in the same places because it feels confusing. Like, yeah, and it feels confusing both to me and to probably people are like, I'm reading about a CRDT and then here's this article about community.
And there's a whole thread there, I think, because like I want to just have a blog now, and this like I just write everything there, and it's just going to be about everything, and like I know that's going to get confusing, and like.
Well, so I do have a research notebook that I've opened up that has a lot of my writing in it. So it's notes.justmart.in. I don't even think it's linked from my website yet. And
I don't know if I've been there. I need to go.
It's got a lot of content. It has like 15 years worth of notes opened up. Yeah.
How do you not tell me that?
How have I not even linked it from my own website?
Yeah,
So I need to do that. And that actually I've actually given some talks on community, friendship, neighborliness, like these topics. And so I have like the notes from those talks. I have the recordings of some of those talks.
And those are also not linked from your website.
Also not linked from my website.
Man, it's like I don't even know you. What happened here?
Okay.
I'll get working on that, and maybe you should too.
Yeah, I probably should.
All right, cool. Well, great. Thanks so much for being here, and always great to chat.
Yeah, thank you, Rosano.
Appreciate you.